I'm Boone. Today I'm talking about BuddyPress 2.0, which viene con esteroides. I totally ripped off this this title from this blog post that was released around the time of BuddyPress 2.0 a couple weeks ago. And there was a lot of people who wrote about BuddyPress 2.0 in various languages. You know, I see them come through the Twitter feed. But this one was hilarious, right? The BuddyPress 2.0 comes with steroids, and I keep seeing it come through over and over again. So anyway, that's really been the mantra for my life over the last couple of weeks. My name is Boone. I'm one of the lead developers for BuddyPress. I am a freelance consultant and developer here in New York City. I do mostly custom plugin development, mostly for universities. And I rule. That's pretty much the summary. These slides can be found at this URL, blo.so/bp20, if you want the links. I'm happy to show this again at the end too. Speak louder, make it bigger. Does anybody know how to do that? How about this? Zoom doesn't seem to work. I don't know. There's probably a magical math combination for zooming in on something, but I don't know what it is. Command Option 8. Awesome. Yeah, it's not doing it for me. Command Option 8, and then Command Option plus. Negative. All right. Whatever. Who cares about you guys in the back? Get a pair of glasses. All right. That's why you sit up front, exactly. You see? That's a wise man talking. We're here to talk about BuddyPress. So how many people are users of BuddyPress right now? Okay, how many people know what BuddyPress is? How many people are like, what? Yeah, those are not mutually exclusive. I mean, you can be any of them. You can be more than one of those at a time. Because I'm like, what all the time? Today I'm going to talk about BuddyPress. I'm going to kind of go over an overview of BuddyPress for those of you who don't know anything about it. And for those of you who do know something about it, I know that some of you in the room who have probably used BuddyPress in the past, but maybe haven't used it in a long time. So I'm going to do a quick overview of BuddyPress all by itself, and then we're going to talk about BuddyPress and some of the new features in BuddyPress 2.0, which is our latest big release. So BuddyPress, in a nutshell, is a plugin for WordPress that allows for social features on top of your WordPress website. So I like to start off when I'm talking about BuddyPress by showing an example. In a couple minutes I'll show you what BuddyPress looks like out of the box, but you know, I like to start off by actually showing you a real community whose site is powered by the BuddyPress behemoth. So the example that I'm using today is called Project Hieroglyph. This is a project out of Arizona State University, and I'll show you that this is what it looks like. God, these pictures really are small. Well, anyway, maybe somebody can help at some point. All right, whatever. That's a picture, that's a screenshot. Here's the mission statement for the site. Hieroglyph is a space, I gotta get up close to read it. Hieroglyph is a space for writers, scientists, artists, and engineers to collaborate on creative, ambitious visions of our near future. This is a pretty cool site. The whole idea is that they wanted a way for people who write science fiction stories. People like, anybody ever read Cryptonomicon or any Neil Stephenson books? So he's like one of the dudes involved in this. It's awesome. And they're collaborating with scientists to actually talk about visions of the future and how science fiction can kind of inform certain sorts of science and futurism, and how on the other hand, scientific inquiry can influence the way that science fiction is written. So a very cool idea for a website. And their website happens to be powered by BuddyPress. So just kind of taking a walk through some of the features that BuddyPress provides on this website. So the first one, any social site, almost any social site is going to have member profiles. So here's one example. Can't really see this very well, but you know, we have customizable avatars. This is something that comes with it. We've got a customizable profile fields here. So administrators are able to configure whatever fields they want. So in this case, this one is biography. This one is previous works. This one is website. This one is best known for. This one is something that I can't read because it's really blurry. So obviously these fields are different depending on the community that you're a member of, but the cool thing about BuddyPress is that it gives you all the tools that you need. You can set up radio buttons, you can set up checkboxes, you can set up different kinds of fields, and then your users come and fill them in as they join the site. So here's another page from Hieroglyph. This is the groups. So BuddyPress has this concept of group. Users can get together in groups and really on any sort of topic. In the case of Hieroglyph, it's really based around particular parts of the future. So in this case, the group is called But What Will We Eat? So here they're having discussions about, and what you're seeing here is a discussion forum that's embedded in the group about food in the future. And actually, maybe I can read it up here. No, I can't read it up there either. Trust me, it's pretty dope. There's also other things that can happen inside a group. So this is an announcements tab, I believe. So aside from having the discussion forums, the traditional bulletin boards, it has an announcements section. It has a docs section that acts like an upload space where people can kind of work together on documents, a little bit like Google Docs, and so on and so forth. So we just looked at profiles. That's one kind of social organization on this BuddyPress site. And then we looked at, this is groups, and that's another way for people to sort of organize on a site that's powered by BuddyPress. So that's groups. Then they have an activity stream. So another one of the powerful features of BuddyPress is that it has this integrated activity stream which acts like an aggregator for all the content that's happening all over the site. Somebody posts a blog post, an item is posted in the activity stream that says Ron posted a blog post. Or let's say if Steve and Boone become friends, that's posted in the activity stream. Or if somebody joins the site, that's posted in the activity stream, and so on and so forth. What's cool then is that this ends up as a filterable way to check out all the content that's happening on your site. We have different filters, so you can look at only the new friendships, only the new groups. You can filter only activity that belongs to my friends, only the activity that belongs to my groups, and so forth. So on Project Hieroglyph, this is actually a real community, which is the reason I like to start off doing it this way. And they're really focused on group activity. Not every community is like that, but here they have groups, and most of the stuff that's happening on the site is happening inside of groups. So if you check out their site at hieroglyph.asu.edu, that's the kind of stuff that you're going to see. So let's take a look at what BuddyPress is like out of the box. So you activate it and install it just like any other WordPress plugin. Go to your dashboard, install it, click activate. You're in business, baby. One of the cool things about BuddyPress is that it is modular. And by that I mean that it has all these different parts to it. These are what we call the different components of BuddyPress. And they all are independent of each other. For some sites, all you really want to have is activity streams. Maybe you want a way to aggregate content from all over the site. Or maybe all you really want on the site is to have groups and profiles. And you don't want to bother with things like friendships and blog tracking. All of these features are independent of each other. When they're turned on together, they often work together in cool ways. For instance, when you have friendships turned on, then you're able to view the activity stream as filtered by your friends. But all of these are independent of each other. And when I pitch this to developers, the way that I like to say it, rock and roll. What I like to say is that BuddyPress is a little bit like a library of tools for building social features. You know, it's the kind of thing where you can kind of take this tool and you can add it to this tool and put it together like Legos. So, user profiles. You've already seen an example of this, but here, you know, name Boone Gorges, favorite turtle Donatello, gum of choice, juicy fruit. I got to read all my jokes to you because you're not going to be able to see any of them. I mean, you don't want to miss them. They're really funny. You can see that the profile here has a bunch of different tabs to it too. So this is kind of another cool thing about BuddyPress, that, you know, unlike a regular WordPress site, which is really focused on your content, it's focused on your blog posts. This is really focused on the individual. And so you're able to really see all of my activity. You're able to see all about me here on my page. You know, this is my profile. If you click on this tab, you go into all my activity on the site. If you go in here, this is, these are all my friends. This is a list of my groups, and so on. BuddyPress plugins can add even more tabs to this list. So it's a great way to sort of have the focus of your site be on individual users rather than being on the content of the site. So BuddyPress user profiles are cool in a bunch of ways. They're totally customizable by the site administrator. So, you know, if you're building a site for a university, let's say, which is the kind of stuff that I often do, the kinds of fields you have are, what department are you in? And what year do you expect to graduate? And stuff like that. But if you're building a different kind of site, like, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan club, then obviously you're going to want to ask different sorts of questions. So that's all configurable by the site admin. There's many field types available, you know, and we have new, I'm going to talk about it in a few minutes, but we've got new developer-facing features in BuddyPress that allow you to do fancy kinds of validation for, like, let's say a URL field type, stuff like that. So pretty slick. and per field visibility. So this is kind of a biggie. Let's say you have a field called phone number. Now, phone number might not be something that you want to publish on the internet, but if you're using the site for internal purposes, this is something individuals are able to say, I want this field to be visible only to logged in members, or I want it to be visible only to my friends. So this can be configured on a per user basis, or it can be configured on, the admin can say, I want this to be friends only for all users, and they can kind of force the situation. So it's a pretty powerful tool for setting up pretty robust profiles. Here's what groups look like out of the box. Scrapbooking enthusiasts. Now, groups, there's a sort of similar UI going on here to what you saw in profiles. We have the main content here, we have a little header, and then we have these various tabs. So here on the home tab, we have the activity in the group. So I already talked a little bit about activity streams site-wide, but that's also filterable on a group basis. So here you're seeing all the activity that happens within the context of the scrapbooking enthusiast group. We have a list of members, we have invitations. Now this is kind of a bare bones installation of WordPress or BuddyPress, but the cool thing is that there are a ton of plugins available that allow you to add extra tabs to this. So things like a shared Dropbox space, or shared files, or shared bulletin board forums, or collaborative document editing, or shared media galleries. All that kind of stuff can be embedded inside the context of groups. So groups, what are some cool features? We got multiple privacy settings. So this is really powerful depending on the kind of community you're running. A lot of times on school sites, for instance, you'll have groups be private, meaning that they can be seen in directories, but you can only see the content of groups if you are a member of the group. You've got to request membership and somebody's got to approve you. That's really powerful for cases where students are having, let's say, graded discussions inside of a group. You can obviously imagine other cases where you might want groups to be private, but they can also be totally public. You can also have hidden groups. So, if you want to have a group about how cool Boone is, but you don't want him to know that you think he's really cool, you could hide it all together from the directory. Although you watch out, because I have some backdoors in BuddyPress, so I could find out anyway. Okay, I didn't say that. So yeah, that's a cool feature. So groups can be created by members. I mean, this seems kind of a stupid thing to say, but one of the really great things about groups is that they're totally open. There's a create a group button at the top of the groups directory, and anybody can click it. Now, this can be turned off so that if you wanted to control group membership or group creation, you could as the administrator. But it's really great to keep on for a number of reasons. I think about the kinds of sites that I build for schools. You might have instructors who come in and they want to set up a site for their class. But you might also have a student who just started a club. Let's say the Boone is Cool fan club or something like that. Then you want to leave that button on because then it lets those students sort of take the initiative and start their own mini communities inside your large community. So it really puts a lot of power in the hands of your users. And like I said before, it's extensible by plugins. I mean, to me, in the sites that I build, groups are really the central feature because they are so extensible. You can add all sorts of features. So, just to take one example, Docs. This is a plugin that I wrote that allows for collaborative document editing, a little bit like group wikis, or kind of like Google Docs for within a group. It's got a rich history where you can walk through the revision history, and you can set different visibility levels on the comments and stuff like that. Now, we've got groups who are using this, let's say, to co-author papers. So if you're like writing a paper with somebody across the country, you're able to actually use this to write a paper together, or you can use it for keeping notes on like your committee minutes over the course of many semesters, stuff like that. I mean, these are really powerful tools, and they're all made available by the group's extensibility feature. So here's activity streams out of the box. Like I said before, basically what you have is an aggregator. And by that I mean that this activity stream acts like, I want to say the lint trap in your dryer, but that doesn't make it sound very good. It's pulling in everything. Everything sticks to it. This is one of the great things about it. I mean, you think about a BuddyPress site, and you have a zillion things going on. You have members in this group talking in a bulletin board forum. You have people over here posting on their blog. You have new members joining the site. There's activity spread all over the place. How do you keep track of it? Well, that's what the activity stream is really for. all this activity can be happening in these disparate places, but then because it's all aggregated here in the activity stream, it gives you as the admin, as well as your users, a way to see what's going on the site. They can subscribe to RSS feeds, they can filter based on the kind of activity, stuff like that. Tracks all user activity in a single filterable interface. That's a summary of what I just said more eloquently. Twitter style updates. So not only does it aggregate content, but you can actually post stuff directly into your activity stream. So it's kind of got a dual life, right? It's not just an aggregator, but you can also post an update just like you would on your Facebook wall or your Twitter stream. We have support for things like app mentions. We have support for hashtags. We have support for favoriting, just like you do in Twitter. So it's kind of this cool combination of having an aggregator alongside of like a mini Twitter system. And we also have support for threaded comments. So this is a pretty cool thing, and you can kind of see it here that I posted an update that says great website, and then here somebody else came and posted a comment on that said, you are the coolest or something. I don't remember what. I'm sure it was really funny. So activity streams are pretty sweet. So that's BuddyPress. Any questions or thoughts about BuddyPress for those of you to whom this is all new or anything like that before I go on and talk about BuddyPress 2.0? Yes, sir.
Can you have different kinds of users? Can you have like one person's an administrator, one person's a student, and they get different kinds of profile fields?
Yeah, the question was, can you have different kinds of users? Let's say administrators, teachers, students, they would have different kinds of profile fields. Maybe they would have different kinds of permissions through the system. BuddyPress doesn't really have this built in right now. I think there are plugins that are available that let you do this. Part of the issue with building it into BuddyPress is that the specific needs of different kinds of user types are going to be so different across communities. Like the difference between a student and a teacher is one thing, but what about the difference between, I don't know, if you have like a church community and you have like the pastor, and what rights should the pastor have as opposed to the congregation members? I mean, it's a different kind of relationship, and so you would want to describe the differences between them differently. So that's something that we haven't really tackled in BuddyPress. That said, you can do this pretty easily with a little bit of custom coding. I mean, I've done it on almost every website that I've built. You set pieces of user meta to say that this is a teacher versus a student versus whatever, and then there are various parts of the interface that you only show to one kind of these users. So it's the kind of thing that you can customize really pretty easily because BuddyPress has a pretty robust plugin API built into it. It uses the WordPress plugin API.
Would that be the theme, that customization?
You can do the customization in the theme. You can build it as a separate plugin. It really depends on your end goal. If you're building this for a client purpose or for a single site, then to build it in as part of your theme makes a lot of sense. If you're building it as something that you want to distribute for others to use, you probably want to build it as a plugin. Yeah, Julie.
Can you talk about the relationship between users of the WordPress who sign on through the WordPress admin versus users who sign on as BuddyPress? Are the two the same or are they different? Should you switch off signups in WordPress regularly?
The question was, what's the difference between WordPress users and BuddyPress users? Do you want to switch registration off in one case and on in the other? The answer is that BuddyPress users are WordPress users. So your username, your password are the very same as the ones that are used in the case of WordPress. BuddyPress happens to have a more robust registration module built into it. So if you've used WordPress multi-site, you know that there's a little checkbox in the multi-site settings. And actually, I shouldn't even say that. There's one if you don't have multi-site, if you go to settings, there's a little box that says anyone can register. Maybe you've never actually checked this because maybe if you're the kinds of sites you're running, you don't need this. But if you check it, what happens is that if somebody visits the page wpsignup.php, then they're able to actually register for an account. This is without BuddyPress. Now, when you turn on BuddyPress, we sort of pimp this out. We make it look nice. We actually make it part of your theme. Instead of looking like WP login, we add some additional profile fields. We ask for, instead of assigning you a random password, we allow you to set your own password. There's all sorts of niceties that we add, but fundamentally, these are WordPress users. So whatever decision you make, BuddyPress doesn't actually have a way to turn on or off registration. You do that at the WordPress level, and then BuddyPress just detects that. Now this is a good thing because if, let's say that there's some sort of modification that you want to do to the way that WordPress users work. For instance, let's say you want to authenticate against LDAP or some other sort of single sign-on, Shibboleth or something like that. I mean, if you've ever done any sort of like big commercial applications or enterprise type work, they always have this single sign-on stuff. There's tons of plugins available for WordPress login to do this kind of stuff. Because BuddyPress login and BuddyPress users are just WordPress users, bam, you just turn it on and it works. Same with, let's say, if you want to use a CAPTCHA or something like that in order to block certain kinds of registrations. Or let's say you want to set up a blacklist of certain sorts of email domains that shouldn't be allowed to register for a site through a plugin. Whatever you do for WordPress is going to work for BuddyPress too. So they are the same, and that's kind of a feature of BuddyPress, is that we just sort of lay on top of the WordPress user registration system. Yes, please.
If you have some sort of plugin that modifies people who sign up, it extends the modification, it'll work on BuddyPress.
If you have a plugin that extends modification of WordPress users, it will work on top of BuddyPress. 95% of the time, yes. I mean, it's possible that there are cases where there'll be some sort of conflict because of something specific that the plugin is doing, but yes, because WordPress users are just, our BuddyPress users are WordPress users, our BuddyPress users, and so on. Yeah.
What about scalability here? You mentioned like church chapters or whatever. If you were dealing with a nationwide organization that had thousands of local chapters with some number of local members, could BuddyPress handle something like that?
The question was, let's hold off on that for a second because I want to talk about that. I got some things to show you. Yeah, let's just take one or two more questions. Then I do want to move on is to make sure that we talk about this before our time runs out. Yeah, please.
The reason I'm asking this question is because I've been looking for some plugin or some thing to use as a review page for hyperlocal. And could you think of it in that context? And if not, what other sort of unusual or extraordinary uses have people extended BuddyPress out into that aren't strictly for social networking within communities?
Can you use it for hyperlocal review type of things? Yes, absolutely. I mean, the real key item here is the group. Now, we call them groups, but groups could be anything. So an example of a site that I just learned about last week it's for a publisher's site that they built a site to connect readers of books to authors of books, and they use the group concept as the books themselves. So instead of becoming a member of a group, you became a reader of a book. And then that became kind of like a shell. So you can imagine the same sort of thing for, let's say, local businesses, a local store or something like that. Exactly, right. So groups would be stores. So that, absolutely, I've built things like that before. You should talk to Nicole, who's sitting back in the middle there with a pink shirt on, because she's building something called Brooklyn the Borough right now using BuddyPress that is doing something really exactly like what you're saying. I don't know if she's got reviews built in, but she's doing e-commerce through this, and local businesses, concert venues, stuff like that are using groups as sort of the organizational principle. So totally check that out. Yes, it can be done. Yes, it is awesome. Yes, BuddyPress is the coolest. Yeah, in the back, please.
So I was using one for an event, and this is like people are close to that for an individual. Is that possible where an individual is close to that?
Can you say that a little bit louder? I'm only catching half of it.
I want to do it for events. So is it possible that you can host events at an individual or at the events?
Right. The question is events. So if you want to be able to post events, either as you want individuals to come in and post events, or you want as an administrator to post events. So there are a couple of big events plugins for WordPress. I don't know a lot about them, but one's called like the Events Manager. Another one's called Events Calendar. They all have very similar names. All of them integrate with BuddyPress in one way or another. So they all work a little bit differently, but some of them allow for users within groups, any users to post new events to a calendar. Some of them require maybe have a toggle for that sort of thing. Some of them have group-specific calendars as opposed to site-wide calendars. But the short answer is yes. Check out your favorite events plugin and look specifically in their documentation for BuddyPress support. Many of them do have it. So yeah, totally. Okay, let's talk about BuddyPress 2.0. And if we have more time at the end, I'll entertain more of your delightful questions. Okay, BuddyPress 2.0. We call it Juliana after, we call all of our BuddyPress releases, we name them after pizza places because it's pizza, right? So, Juliana's named after Juliana's, Patsy Grimaldi's new place on the Brooklyn Bridge. Everybody remember Grimaldi's that used to be there? Right, so it's not, so Grimaldi's moved down to the end of the street on Old Fulton Street, and then into it's really confusing, right? Because it was Patsy Grimaldi's place. And then he sold it, but it was still called Grimaldi's. Then they lost their lease and they got moved down the street. And then Patsy Grimaldi opened a new pizza shop in the old Grimaldi's, with the old Grimaldi's running down the street. So his new pizza place, Patsy Grimaldi's place, is called Juliana's. Grimaldi's runs 4 doors down the street. Anyways, it's very complicated. Don't even get me started on Patsy's, because that's an even more complicated story. But anyway, so Juliana, great pizza place, and BuddyPress 2.0 is really great too. So I mean, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? What have we added in BuddyPress 2.0? Well, the first biggie is administrative tools. If you are running a BuddyPress site that's bigger than, let's say, 20 members, you're going to have a ton of administrative tasks, things that you need to do in terms of member moderation, in terms of content moderation, stuff like this. We have been building over the last 3 or 4 major releases of BuddyPress. Every release we've been putting in new features for being able to manage your content in an administrative fashion from the WordPress dashboard. Because in a regular BuddyPress site, everything happens through the front. Your users never really have to see the dashboard. They're always looking at the beautiful front end of your site as opposed to the beautiful dashboard. But as the administrator, you want the ability to do bulk actions. You want to be able to see big things on the dashboard, so that's what we've been building. So what did we do in BuddyPress 2.0? Well, the first biggie is profiles. As the administrator, you will now be able to see, when you go to the Edit User page, built into the WordPress dashboard, an Extended Profile tab. This contains all of the BuddyPress specific information for this user. So the administrator here can go in and edit the extended profile content of any BuddyPress user. So let's say this user put that his favorite turtle is Michelangelo, which is totally wrong. Let's say you want to change that to Donatello, who's obviously the right one. You could do this here. Not saying you should do that, but if one of them was like, favorite turtle shit, then you might want to change that. So this is a really useful tool. It's something that's been in the works for a long time. This is just really the beginning. We allow you to edit this. We allow you to change the avatar. But then there's some other goodies that we have in store for future releases for this page. Like down here, this is a stats box. And it tells things like last update, or they last logged in at this time. They're a member of 4 groups. They have 16 friends. So this kind of gives you a sense of the kind of data that is possible to collect in a place like this, the kinds of tools that you could put on a page like this. Plugins are starting to use this, and in BuddyPress Core, we're going to start implementing more cool stuff on this page too. So really cool new feature. Another thing is spam users. So everyone knows about spam users, right? Anybody who's had open registration on a website knows about spam users. WordPress multi-site has spam administration tools built in. If you go to the users section, you can mark users as spam. But there isn't a way natively to do that in WordPress without multi-site. It's a long and complicated and frankly kind of stupid story. But we've introduced parity to the situation. So now you'll see the same thing if you're not running multi-site as you would see if you're running multi-site. This makes the experience a little bit more consistent. Thank you. We feel like we're doing a community service. Signups. Here's another place where we have done what WordPress should have done, what we would never be able to push through the development process. We have normalized the sign-up process. So the technical details are very complicated and, again, dumb. But basically, WordPress multi-site, and before that, WordPress multi-user, had a very separate system for registering for a site than WordPress without multi-site. The technical underpinnings of it were different. The places where this information was stored in the database were different. And most importantly, there was no user interface for the administrator to look at this. So if you had somebody come and register for your site, using WordPress multi-site, and they said, I registered, my email address is donatelloisthebest@gmail.com, why didn't I get my registration email, blah, 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 and you get 50 of those. There was nothing you could do except for fire up MySQL and say, select all from WP signups where blah, blah, blah. It's really a terrible situation. I say it was, but it still is. This is the way that WordPress multi-site works. There are plugins that can let you fix this. I actually wrote one called Unconfirmed, which is kind of like a shout out to a Clint Eastwood movie. But anyway, so that's just for WordPress. For BuddyPress, because open registration and because sign-up management is such a central part of what a BuddyPress network is all about, obviously it's all about members. It's all about having members register. We built the sign-up screen that WordPress doesn't have. So when you go in, this is the regular users page. We have all administrator subscriber, just like you would have on a regular WordPress panel. And then we've added a new tab called pending. This has all of your pending users, all the people who have signed up but have not activated their accounts. And then we allow a couple different bulk actions. You can manually activate. So if you've ever registered for a WordPress account by yourself, you know that you're sent an email afterwards that says click here to activate. This gets lost in spam filters, user error. I mean, a lot of things can happen, right? So I speak from a place of deep frustration. You can automatically activate this. You can also resend emails. Let's say somebody's email really did get legitimately lost. You can resend that activation email so they can click it themselves. You can go in here and you can edit this. Let's say they mistyped their email address. They type GMIAL instead of Gmail, right? So you could go in and you could correct that. We give you all of these really cool tools. And we give them to you on multi-site and on single WordPress. And we have normalized the way that the data is stored. We use the WP signups table no matter which system you're using so that plugins are able to extend this in a really consistent way. Basically, it's the bomb. And if you've ever managed a WordPress site with open registration, this alone is almost worth the admission price of BuddyPress, just because it's such a powerful tool for handling these sorts of things. Really sweet. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to leave on a high note, so see you later. Repair tools. So this is just kind of a little throwaway, but basically, sometimes if you're doing funky things with user registration, let's say, your total members count can get off. You can get other sorts of counts that are off if you're doing things programmatically. These are tools that allow you to sort of script. You check this box that says repair the friend count for each user, and then we'll go through and recalculate all those things. So not something that most people will need to use, but for people who do need to use it, this is a huge time saver. So cool new administrative tools. We're really getting to the point over the last year where the tools available to BuddyPress site administrators are really robust, and you can manage a very large site, and you have the tools at your disposal for doing so. We're really proud of that. Performance is the second one. So here we get to the performance point. Just to sort of, before I show this, so the story behind this, the issue with BuddyPress, and this is, I've been working on BuddyPress for about 5 years, and every time somebody kind of says to me, BuddyPress broke my site. I have $4 a month hosting. Why can't I run Facebook on it? So, I know, people are like that. So, the issue with BuddyPress is that it's a very specific kind of application, right? WordPress is one kind of thing. You post a blog post, and then maybe you have 100,000 visitors. But they're all seeing the same content, right? So there's various sorts of solutions that you can use to make WordPress run very quickly and you scale very large with that kind of schema. You can serve static HTML pages, for instance. That's very, very fast, much faster than loading WordPress. And then you can sort of bust that cache every time somebody posts a comment or something like that, or you edit the post. That technique, which is sort of the first go-to of anyone who's trying to scale a WordPress site, isn't really available to BuddyPress sites. There's a couple reasons why. One is that the content is so frequently updated. Ideally, on a BuddyPress site, you've got people posting new activity all the time, right? So the lifetime of your cached files would be relatively short. But the real issue is that different users who are logged into BuddyPress actually see different things. I have a different set of friends in this network, let's say, than Steve does. So when I go to the My Friends tab in the activity stream, I'm seeing different content than Steve. That URL can't be cached in the same way that you could cache, let's say, a regular blog post. Another way of putting this is that BuddyPress is a much more database-driven application than WordPress by itself. There's a lot more content that's stored in the database, and it's a lot more dynamic when it's displayed for any individual user. There's just a lot more of it. There's nothing we can do about that. That's part of what makes it great. There's a lot of stuff that is really sensitive to user context, and that's really awesome. But it also introduces certain bottlenecks and certain challenges to scaling. So what we've done for BuddyPress 2.0 is we've really, for the first time in the history of the project, we really took a sort of holistic approach to fixing some of these problems. So some of the focuses, and here it's a little bit technical, but couple big focuses, and basically these were bottleneck issues. So BuddyPress is by no means perfect, and we're trying to improve on these every time, but we handled what I consider to be 3 really major issues in BuddyPress that have had some serious ramifications. So the first is activity streams. So in general, the way that we were generating those activity streams, it's a ton of content. If you have 1,000 users on a site and it's fairly busy for a year or two, you can easily have 100,000 or 1,000,000 rows in your activity table. Now, so now multiply that by 10 or by 100 if you have many more users. The queries that happen then have a tendency to be kind of slow sometimes. We totally went back to square one, back to the drawing board, and rewrote the way that these queries run. There are cases where we reduced query overhead by 2 or 3 orders of magnitude. We made queries 1,000 times faster than they had previously been. So that's the difference between a MySQL query that takes 2.5 seconds and one that takes 25 milliseconds. I mean, these are really enormous things when you multiply that over the number of visitors that you have. So major improvements in many ways in the activity stream. Another one is member directories in last active. I'm not going to go into the really gory details, but basically BuddyPress needs activity data for each individual user in order to say, you know, Steve was last active 20 minutes ago. We used to store that content in the user meta table, but once the user meta table gets very large and you try to actually sort by content in the user meta table, the whole world explodes, the space-time continuum folds in on itself, all sorts of things happen. Just go watch a bunch of Star Trek movies and you'll totally understand it. So we refactored this whole thing. We tore last activity out of that table. We put it in a proper table where it can actually be indexed in the proper ways. This is another case where if you have a site with 10,000 members, we've decreased certain kinds of member filters from taking, let's say, 2 or 3 seconds, the MySQL query, to taking 5 milliseconds. So again, we've a couple of orders of magnitude. Multiply that over the number of users on your site. All of a sudden, you see huge reductions in the kinds of traffic, or in the kinds of resource use on your site. And then the last one is we've really started to implement systematically good practices with respect to persistent object caching. So this is a kind of a geeky thing, but basically we can't do full static page caching, as I've already discussed. So object caching is a way to store smaller chunks of data in a way that doesn't need to be requeried across sessions. So if you, let's say, when you post an update that says, hey, I went to the WordPress meetup tonight, it was totally sweet, and then you reload that page again, by default, it's going to hit the database again to get that information. And every time the page loads, it's going to go to the database. But if you have a persistent object cache, that little piece of information can be stored in some place that's much more efficient. It could be stored in RAM, for instance. So some of the schemas for this, or some of the backend systems, are APC, Memcache, Redis, stuff like that. We've gone really through a fine-tooth comb, at least with a couple of our most problematic components, and now we use really make really extensive use of this, to the extent where if you turn on APC with BuddyPress 1.9, and then you turn it on with the same site, BuddyPress 2.0, you can see the total number of queries go down by 80% on a single page load. So these are really huge numbers, and BuddyPress was just is one of those projects that kind of grew really fast, and it grew really fast in order to work, but sometimes just doing what works can result in something that's kind of a bear at scale. But here we've gone back and we've really rectified, we've repaid a lot of that technical debt. It's really, really great. So this sucks because I made a cool GIF and everything, but now you can't really see it. But right here I went to the site like whichloadsfaster.com or something like that, and I set up a couple of BuddyPress installations. This one is 2.0. This one is 1.9, and then I loaded them up with a bunch of data. I think it was like 50,000 activity items, a couple thousand users. And then I just started running the tests over and over again, just on the activity stream. So you could do this on various pages throughout the site, but this is just the activity stream. You run this over and over again, and on average, this ends up being 82% faster than this one. So that means that we've shaved off 82% of the load time that BuddyPress, and this is with WordPress underneath it, right? So like the WordPress baseline, this doesn't even take that into account. So really we're reducing on this particular page the overhead introduced by the BuddyPress activity stream by 80–90%. I mean, that's not going to happen on every single page, but it's really dramatic. And I've already been getting reports trickling in sort of privately to me by people who run major sites or by hosting companies themselves who say, we really can't believe what's happening on these sites. And it's really been good for everybody. So it's totally bodacious, and you can check out more benchmarks at this URL. Again, it's hard to benchmark these things, really, because it depends so much on your environments and so much on the specifics of the site. But the numbers are really great, and if you've run a BuddyPress site before and you switched over to BuddyPress 2.0 today, you would immediately see improvements in speed, and improvements in resource allocation. Activity stream improvements. So to me, in my heart, the activity stream is the awesomest part of BuddyPress. Even if you don't think of it as a social tool, you just think of it as a way to collect information about whatever's happening on your site. I think it's the coolest, and I'm really happy whenever we can make improvements to the way the activity stream works. So the first one that is really kind of cool is that we do this automatic pinging now to see if there's new stuff. So let's say you're viewing your activity stream, you're kind of browsing around, and then your friend over in the west side, we're on the west side, I live on the east side, so anyway, forget it. Back to square one. So your friend posts an activity update while you're viewing this page. So BuddyPress is going to know that, and it's going to say a load newest item. You click this, and it's going to automatically load. So something that you may not notice until you've actually started using your site for a while, but a very cool little user interface feature. Dynamic action strings. So this one is a little bit technical in nature, but it's super, super important, and it's been one of my biggest annoyances with BuddyPress ever since I started using it. When you post an activity item like this, so here's an activity update that says, here's some random text. And then up here it says, user 59 posted an update. This string we call the action. Now, in the past, we stored that as a string in the database, meaning that it was hard-coded. That means if user 59 changes his name to user 58 or whatever, that's not going to be updated. That also means that if you want to switch this site to French, which is what it is over here, it's not going to automatically translate because it's just stored in the database. We did this for performance reasons because in order to pull up all that information, it can really introduce a lot of problems. But because part of all of the performance improvements that we did this time around meant that we didn't have to do that anymore. So now when you have it in English, this says user 59 posted an update, and over here this says user 59 a publié une note. Right? So it's really cool. It just sort of automatically flips. This is huge for people. Like I know a site, for instance, it built a couple years ago. It was on BuddyPress. It was the Liberal Party of Canada's official website. And they had to jump through these enormous hoops to get it to display in French and English. All of the custom code they had to write goes out the window with BuddyPress 2.0 because all of this just automatically happens. Really, really cool. Two-way blog comment sync. Another kind of small one that you might not notice but can actually have a huge effect on your community engagement. When you post a blog post, an activity item is posted too. It says, Boone posted a new post. I'm the coolest. And that's what it says here. Boone wrote a new post, a cool new blog post. This is the activity stream. This is the blog itself. Now, it's always been the case that the sync has gone in this direction. What we did for BuddyPress 2.0 is that we made sure it goes in this direction too. So if you post a comment on this activity item, it also gets synced back here to the blog comments. That means no fracturing. So this is the problem I've had in a lot of communities where you have people who are posting here, it doesn't show up here, and then you have different conversations happening in different places, people are missing stuff. This is a way of really bringing them together and making sure they're mirrored all the time. A small thing, but really powerful in terms of user engagement. A lot of developer goodies. I don't know how many people, I know a couple people in here have developed for BuddyPress. But I'll go over this quickly. A new X-profile field type API. So we used to have this really, really awful way of, let's say, building the markup for if you had a checkbox profile field. We built that markup in 4 different places throughout BuddyPress, and it was all hard-coded in this really terrible way with a big switch statement, like if this is a checkbox field, do this, otherwise do. It was awful. Totally been gutted and rewritten. It's a really modular API now. You can define your own field markup. You can define your own edit markup. You can define your own regular expressions for validation of input. Really, really nice. Definitely check it out. That was one of those commits where there was a little bit of green and there was a whole ton of red. It was awesome. We took a lot out of BuddyPress there for the better. Metadata improvements. So if you have ever used a BuddyPress plugin that adds things to inside of, let's say, a members loop. So you've got the members page, and then it shows, let's say, their Twitter handle inside of the members loop. Now, it used to be that all resulted in 20 extra hits to the database each time. What we added is some extra prefetching, kind of like the WordPress post loop does. It has a feature called update meta cache or something like that. We added the same thing for all of our BuddyPress loops. So basically, if you start grabbing metadata in the middle of the loop, it's not going to result in any extra overhead. If that went over your head, don't worry about it, but trust me, it's pretty sweet. Core function leverage. We rewrote all of our internal metadata tools so that they use the core add metadata, update metadata APIs instead of using our own SQL calls. This reduced our code base by a huge amount. It reduced the number of tests that we had to write, and it allowed us to leverage the core caching APIs. So very, very cool. BP parse args. This is a way to kind of override template functions without having to override the templates themselves in your theme. I'm going to skip over the details of that. We've torn out some of the custom SQL that we used to use for bringing up things like group invitations and group requests, and we're running it all through a single query class. It's much more powerful, much more centralized, much more bodacious. You can check out a complete changelog on the BuddyPress Codex, and I know you will. Thank you very much. Questions, comments, or effluvians for praise? Yes?
Question on scalability. So in other words, BuddyPress will handle if you've got 200, 300,000 members.
But will BuddyPress scale to 200, 300,000 members? The short answer is yes. Well, the real answer is that anything will scale to anything if you have enough hardware behind it. That's true, right? I mean, but it will be much easier to do with the new version of BuddyPress. You can't run something, I mean, BuddyPress isn't really about the number of members, it's about the number of concurrents, because the real bottleneck here is the amount of RAM that's used to render a page. And so that depends more on the number of concurrent users that you have. But you can handle 1,000 concurrent users with BuddyPress 2.0 if you have the right resources behind it, and it's not going to choke things up. It's really a big improvement. Steve, please.
The user features, the very cool user features that are in BuddyPress 2.0, they play nice with BuddyPress.
What the user features is they play nice with BuddyPress. You mean the spam stuff?
Yeah.
I don't actually know. I'd have to look. The profile editing does not have anything to do with BuddyPress. The spam stuff might. It would on multi-site, but the thing about WordPress single is that the way that it marks a user as spam is it's not really native to WordPress. It's something that BuddyPress invented, and I'm not sure whether BuddyPress uses it too. Basically, we use the user status column, but that's something that WordPress doesn't do on its own. We sort of invented it. BuddyPress might do it. I'd have to research it more. On multi-site, though, yes, definitely. Agree.
Is it any easier to create different categories of groups?
It is easier to create different categories of groups. No. We haven't built that. Although we have, I will say that in the last couple of versions, we have built out some cool features. Actually, Eric in the back row originally wrote this. It's a meta query function for BP has groups. So if you've ever used WP query, you know there's a meta query argument that you can pass that allows you to filter based on metadata. You can do the same thing with groups, which means that if you've built a custom mechanism for, let's say, storing group type in group meta, you can filter on that at the template level. So that's one piece of the puzzle. We haven't built a UI for that. But it's funny that you mentioned it because I was actually talking with a BuddyPress developer this morning in Skype about how he's building this for a project, and he showed me the UI, and he said, I want to release it as a tool. Can we put it in BuddyPress? So, I mean, there are people who are building that kind of stuff, and we're working in that direction. The thing about stuff like that is that that affects the underlying queries is that there's a lot of refactoring that has to go into introducing that kind of thing in a way that will actually scale for all user types. So it's one thing to build a plugin that handles group types, but to do it in BuddyPress itself, we have to do another round of due diligence, and so that's the reason why that kind of thing isn't there yet. Although I've built it for many different clients, again. So
The way we tried to handle that was to use the BP group hierarchy. So the top level groups aren't actually groups with people in them, they just have other groups. So the very top level, those would be like the categories. So that was our way of simulating it. I don't know if that's
so
a good idea or a bad idea.
So Ron said for the camera that he used the BP group hierarchy to sort of mimic the idea of group types. The top level groups weren't groups in themselves, they were more like categories. Yeah, that's a totally great way to get around it, and that probably didn't really require much coding at all, just a little bit of front end stuff. So great idea. I think that's something that I would think about implementing in BuddyPress over the next couple versions. But there's a lot of work to be done. I think some of the performance improvements especially, the thing about these performance improvements is that they're far reaching. A lot of the things that we couldn't do in BuddyPress for a long time because they would have put too much weight on the system, the doors are now open. So I think that those kinds of things are possibilities for the next couple of versions. Yeah, in the yellow shirt, please.
I've got a service that basically pairs people together. Or puts them into like a mastermind group a month at a time. And then the next month it's into a different group. And next month it's a different group. So basically every month it changes. Is that a functionality to script in BuddyPress? Or like is there a way, is there like a gating component to the site? Where, I mean, it's not gating, it's like pairing people together. Is there an easy way to integrate that into the site if they do use BuddyPress for a WordPress site?
So, is there a good way to pair people? Is there a good way to sort of build dating type of functionality? I built a dating site in BuddyPress once. It's really good for the profile parts of it. For dating in particular, you want to have like a profile like you build on OkCupid, you know, like my favorite author is, Kurt Vonnegut. So yeah, that's Kurt Vonnegut's great. Don't get me wrong, but you know, if you've ever done online dating, you totally know what I'm talking about. So yeah, you can do that part of it's really useful. Some of the stuff isn't really that useful. Things like groups, for instance, probably isn't that useful. You could use friendships for this purpose. The thing about friendships is that they're really many-to-many. So you can be friends with as many people as you want. It's not really a unique pairing mechanism, which if you want to enforce that, you probably have to build something custom. So I think there's parts of BuddyPress that you probably could use. It's not going to handle the core logic of what you want to do because it sounds like it's really specific to your use case. But definitely check it out. I mean, download it, install it, and then see if you can kind of start to see the way that it overlays. I'm not sure, but possibly you can use parts of it.
Right, it's just pairing people together, pairing that person with another person. It's a mastermind.
Yeah. Friendships might be able to do that. I mean, certainly you can do anything with anything. I mean, I think friendships could be a basis for doing that. It is a way to relate users to each other. So, but then you'd have to build out a lot of the interface around that. Yeah. Yes, please.
Instead of having users sign up individually, can you import all the users together from an Excel document or some other?
Can you import users from an Excel document or someplace else instead of having them register for themselves? The answer is yes, with an asterisk. I mean, BuddyPress users are WordPress users. And so any technique that you can use to import WordPress users, you can also use mutatis mutandis for BuddyPress users. Now, there are a lot of plugins that allow you to do this. I have not used a lot of them because in my experience, it's always easier for me to write something custom to do that kind of thing for a client because the uses are always really specific. I don't know a lot about them. I did write a plugin once called Simple Import Users. You can look it up on Google. That allows you to put in a list of email addresses, nothing but email addresses. That's what makes it simple. No usernames, anything like that. It'll automatically generate usernames, passwords, send them out, add the users to the current blog. If you have BuddyPress installed, it'll also do 1 or 2 BuddyPress things. There are tons of plugins like that. The bottom line is find one that works well for WordPress, and it will do 95% of what you need for BuddyPress 2 because it's built on top of WordPress users. Yes, in the back, please.
I'm pretty blown away by a lot of the changes you made. It's really innovative, you know, it's going lighter, and all that. I'm imagining that the mobile experience must be much better.
Managing the mobile experience?
The mobile experience, because pulling up, it's taking less time to pull up all that data. I'm wondering, you know, if BuddyPress has any kind of tools or resources or anything cool that works with like responsive design.
Yeah. How
does it work with mobile?
Right, how does it work with mobile? So we have made a push. So when you install BuddyPress, all the screenshots I showed you were inside of the 2012 theme. BuddyPress, for a couple of versions now, for about a year, BuddyPress will just work with any old WordPress theme. You just turn it on and it works. So some of the responsiveness stuff for the header and footer and the sidebar and stuff like that, we just inherit from whatever your theme is. If you're using 2012, it's pretty responsive out of the box. And so that, at least that amount of responsiveness you get automatically. Now, as far as the BuddyPress content itself, we've been sort of introducing this release after release and kind of improving the default templates that we ship with so that it's a pretty good experience on most mobile devices. It's a challenge because BuddyPress does work inside of any theme. So when you, like, let's say, set a media query that says, do this at 800 pixels, well, 800 pixels in 2014 is different from 800 pixels in 2012, which is different from 800 pixels in a Genesis theme. I mean, they're really radically different. So it's hard for BuddyPress to really know out of the box exactly what your breakpoints need to be, and exactly what your interface should do. That said, it's pretty good. So what I would suggest is install it on your existing theme. Check out the whatever existing breakpoints you have in your theme. Check it out and see how BuddyPress agrees with it. You're probably going to have to do some customization to work just the way you want it to work. As far as the mobile stuff beyond just plain responsiveness, I mean, Brian's really your guy to talk to, so you should find Brian and bug him afterwards, because he's probably actually got more experience, even aside from AppPresser, just building mobile stuff for BuddyPress than I do. Yeah, no problem. In the back, please.
About if there's any plan with like integration or support for like learning management systems. You got groups for books, groups. There's going to be, of course, there are other good plugins to do the integrations, or like Mozilla OpenEd, is that's coming together now, or will be coming together.
Okay. So the question was, what are the plans with BuddyPress and learning management systems, integration with various sorts of learning platforms, classroom use? This is one that's near and dear to my heart. I work with universities. So at the very basic level, I have done lots of sites where groups are surrogates for courses. So that's the simplest thing. You start a new group and you call it History 110, Western Civ 1 or whatever. And so the group acts like a container for all of your course activity. But that's not actually introducing any custom functionality. It's just sort of using BuddyPress for courses. As far as things like badges, there is a specific WP Badger plugin that works with Mozilla Open Badges. It's not built for BuddyPress, but it will work alongside of BuddyPress. I know because I worked on the WP Badger plugin a little bit, so it's not really built specifically to like work in groups or anything like that, but you could do just a small amount of hacking to make them work really nicely together. There's also BadgeOS. And BadgeOS is not specifically built for Mozilla Open Badges, from my understanding.
It is, yeah.
But you do have integration with it in some ways?
It integrates with Mozilla Open Badges, and it also integrates with BuddyPress. There's a BuddyPress extension.
Right. So it integrates with Mozilla and it integrates with BuddyPress. So if you're looking for badges in particular, that's a good route to go down. There's other kinds of gamification available. There's a plugin called Achievements, which is kind of similar in concept, but pretty different in execution to BadgeOS, where teachers could, let's say, set up custom achievement and they would get a badge according to that, but it's not like associated with Mozilla or any external verifier. It's just sort of an internal thing. As far as actual courseware is concerned, there used to be a project called BP Courseware that included a grade book and some grading mechanisms, like a quiz mechanism and stuff like that. It's kind of fallen out of development a little bit. Beyond that, I hesitate to say too much, but I'm involved in a couple projects that are doing grading type of things on top of BuddyPress or sort of next to BuddyPress and integrate in various ways. So sort of stay tuned over the next 6 months or so, and maybe things will start trickling out from me personally. That sounds really terrible. Hopefully things won't trickle out from me, but they may trickle out from my blog. Yikes. So it's sort of a fraught situation. BuddyPress is sort of, in my mind, the classroom and the university is the perfect place for BuddyPress. They're the people who need something like BuddyPress the most. But it's very difficult to build tools for classrooms that will actually please a relatively large number of teachers because they're also idiosyncratic anyways. There's a reason why most learning software sucks, because it's really hard to build. So yeah, with a little bit of customization, BuddyPress can do anything. Yeah, that was more of a philosophical answer than you were looking for. I can tell by the look in your face. Yeah, please.
Can you talk about the update process? Is it hard to go from an older version like 1.9 or before that?
Talk about the upgrade process. So updating from 1.9 should be no problem. We had a couple hiccups with when 2.0 was released for people who were running very, very, very large sites. Like they were migrating over 300,000 members. There were some issues just in terms of timeouts and stuff like that. Some people who are doing funky things with custom user registration plugins. But anyways, we fixed those. If you're upgrading from a very old version, 1.5 or before that even, you want to step through that, because then we're talking about a lot of database schema changes, and I'm not sure in theory you could do it, but I think WordPress is usually advocated for doing a skip upgrade. So if you're if you were at 2.7 and you wanted to bring it up to date, go to 2.9, then 3.0, then 3.2. That may no longer be the case, but something like that for BuddyPress is probably a wise idea. Ron.
Following on kind of what Devin was saying about learning management systems, the project we're doing groups our courses, and we're using BuddyPress docs as a place to do stuff during the course. But one of the issues is that when they go to the doc, then they're in the list of all the docs for all the courses.
You can talk to me about that later. That's a very specific question about the very specific plugin. So yeah, it's people have said that to me before, so we can talk about that later though. Yeah.
So now when we talk about WordPress, the platform is used for public sites. So people, you have WordPress showcase and everything, and people know that okay, so many sites are using WordPress versus BuddyPress. And there are a lot of private networks which use BuddyPress.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
How do you get motivated? How do you know that you should continue doing what you're doing? So after that, you have to community back to the community.
This is maybe the best question I've ever been asked on WordPress. So the question was, WordPress sites are public. If you build a WordPress site, like ESPN.com or something like that, and you want to say, oh look, I built this, it's really great, you can go out and send the link out and people are like, that's really great. The problem with BuddyPress sites is that you build them and 3/4 of them want them to be locked away somehow. I mean, so how do you keep motivated? How do you go out there and show them to people? Not only as a developer who works with clients, but as an advocate for the platform. People come to me and say, show me some great sites. Well, the best sites are under lock and key. I can't actually show them to you. So I built an award-winning site a couple years ago for the Museum of Jewish History, where all of the social features were totally locked up. It was for kids. I mean, it has to be locked up. But so yes, it is demoralizing. Thank you for feeling my pain. It's hard, yeah.
The question I get is, how many users do you think WordPress will be something? Look at them.
Yeah.
Look at the university sites. That's what I say. But if you go across any sites that are part of WordPress or not, I don't know if there is anything.
Yeah. So there's one website called bpinspire.com. That is a showcase. I have no idea who runs it, to be totally honest with you, and it's not updated that frequently. And sometimes the choices they make are not. I don't really understand them, but it's one place to start. So mea culpa. I mean, we don't do a great job of running a showcase. We used to run a showcase on BuddyPress.org. It got really stagnant. We should do a better job, and we should set up a better system. If you have ideas about how to do that, frankly, WordPress doesn't do a great job with it either. They have a WordPress showcase, but you have to pay somebody in order to get. I have no idea. I mean, it's sort of weird. You don't literally have to pay someone, but it's I don't know what the system is. We should have a better system. If you have ideas, come talk to me. I agree, it's a challenge, and it's an issue for sort of spreading the platform. But maybe we have time for one more question. It's 9 o'clock. Yes, please.
What was the website?
bpinspire. Inspiration.com, yeah. BP, yeah, since that wasn't really a question, go ahead, Eric.
Is that with an object cache turned on, or just WordPress?
Can you say that again?
Does bonus boost to 80%? Was that with an object cache turned on, or just?
Both. So go check out some of the benchmarks that I posted. I actually ran different tests, what is the overhead of WordPress by itself without object caching? What happens when you turn on BuddyPress 2.0? What's the difference? What's the difference between 2.0 and 1.9? Then do all the same tests with object caching on. I kind of didn't really do a specific matrix, but you'll see there's lots of different tests described. There's huge improvements in every single rung of the ladder. So yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for your time, and yeah.